Okay, guys, welcome back. Season 2, Episode 3 of the podcast. Very lucky to be joined by three-time PGA Tour winner Scott Stallings. Scott, awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Nice, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Not at all. Where are you situated right now, Scott? Where are you based?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Nice.
Okay. Great. How are things there? Kind of same as us up here, lockdown with everything, with the old COVID-19 scenario?
Yeah, I mean, golf courses are open, parks are open. I mean, we're still under Tennessee and the county that I live in is through the end of April. But, I mean, that's only going to be expanded. That's not going to, I know some states are, till the end of May, but, we're kind of falling a week or two behind as we progress. But it is what it is. I kind of live out in the woods and, I have a wife and 2 kids and, pretty isolated back here in the country. And, it's a nice, if you're going to have to be stuck somewhere, it's a good place to be stuck.
Sounds like it. Yeah. There's a lot of people I think right now are sort of in a way for their own reasons, very thankful to have some time with the family, time to be situated at home. I know as a PGA Tour player, the amount you travel, this is probably a welcome break to be at home and spend time with your loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it. This is my 13th year of professional golf and 10th year on the PGA Tour, and this is the longest time off I've ever had in my professional career since college.
Crazy.
Wow.
So, I mean, right as you were kind of gearing up to, play a big part of the season, when we were at the Players, I was getting ready to play 4 in a row and getting ready to play it was something like 11 out of 13 weeks or something like that. And I mean, I'd only played 10 events so far through the course of the year, and my average is probably 28. So, it was pretty early in my season, and, everyone as well. And then to kind of have it kind of just be shut down like that. But that was definitely the right thing to do. I mean, I feel, safe and, health and wellness for yourself and your family should be a priority. And, I don't think I want to, in too big of a rush to get back with all the uncertainty that's out there and everything, doing everything we possibly can to be ready to play, when and if that day comes. But that day seems to be further and further away by every email and phone call and, social media requests and stuff. I've done more interviews and podcasts and everything in the last few weeks than I've maybe done in my life. So, but I did have a cup for
Thursday.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I've been doing all my with Masters Week. That's my son from the Masters, the par 3 tournament.
That's a great photo.
I've kind of moved
Special
my locations.
Memories.
Yeah, I've kind of moved my locations the last few weeks all around my house. I've done it in my gym. I've done it where I hit balls. Kind of moved it all around, and being that it's technically Masters Week, I decided to do all my ones with. That's probably our favorite picture that we've ever had taken on the golf course, and I'm not in it.
See why?
So.
Yeah, that puts life in perspective, doesn't it? When that's there's a lot more to life than just the game of golf. And so, where's the mindset at right now for a PGA Tour player with the uncertainty that's out there?
The mindset is just enjoy the time, man. I have zero control of anything in regards to the CDC, the government, the World Health, the PGA Tour. I mean, I can give my input here and there, but I chose from the very beginning. Got a really good team around me that we're not going to choose to speculate. I'm not going to sit here and guess when and if I think we're going to play. I trust the players and the people that are involved in that decision-making process that they're not going to put us in a bad spot. And I think I kind of rest easy in the fact that, we're not going to go right back until they feel like it's safe for all parties involved. I read a really good article in the LA Times today just about speculation about how people just desire to have like something to hope for. And a lot of people look to sporting events as kind of an outlet. And it was a good perspective as far as for people to take everything into account of there's more than the 150 players and caddies in a golf tournament. There's more than the 9, defensive players and the 1 batter in baseball. And there's so much more than just what you see like inside the ropes or on the field or on the court, depending on whatever sport you're talking about. And just the sense of urgency to get back is understandable, but I don't know if it's necessarily realistic.
Yeah, and that's what I'm so curious about when I look on social media and I see, Rory and Billy Horschel and what they're doing with their Peloton workouts. I'm curious where the kind of mind goes for players, whether it's, okay, I'm going to prepare that when we restart, I want to be in the fast lane when this restarts, or is it used as recovery, get a little downtime so that you can push hard because it's going to be so condensed towards the back end of the season?
Yeah, I don't think anyone is sun up to sundown. And I've got a very unique training group here in Tennessee. And when we all got shut down, we have a baseball guy, we have a guy that fights in the UFC, and we have our trainer kind of PT guy that we all work with. And we all got on a call and decided we were going to be super disciplined with the social distancing and, kind of putting in the time that we were able to spend together. And just with this perspective of, we'll never have this time again in our careers ever, in the midst of the middle of the season, to be able to train and push each other. So as disciplined as we were going to have to be able to have that time together during this, however long this lasts, we were going to have to be disciplined outside of it as well. And we were talking about it all. Like, my UFC guy, he's boxing a little bit, but he's not in, training jiu-jitsu, training wrestling, 24/7.
Yeah.
A baseball guy he'll throw with us and, maybe hit a few here and there, but the same thing in golf, like go walk 9 holes or hit some balls in my house. But I don't think when you play the volume of golf that a PGA Tour player plays, that you have to figure out a way to kind of get away from it, to where when the bell goes off again, there's an excitement instead of just the monotony of, oh, I got to do this again. And there's so much attention to detail and focus when it comes to playing and preparing for a tour event, that it's nice to kind of get away from that. And I think this is the first time that any player can say that they've taken the time away, and they probably haven't put in the thought of, I wonder what someone else is doing to try to get better right now, because everyone is in the exact same boat. And you're starting to see now a lot of states are shutting down golf courses. And I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and for our courses are still open, but Chattanooga, an hour and a half down the road, everything is shut down. And so I think you're going to start to see some variables like that, and people kind of look back. It's like, man, even if I was given the opportunity or whatever, I don't know if I would necessarily go out there and, kind of back and forth between, but enjoy the time with the family. I have been training quite a bit in the gym, and I actually traded some messages back and forth with Roy the other day about some of the stuff that he's been doing and some of the stuff that we've been doing, and just trying to, everyone kind of knows what they need to do to get better. And it's been cool to kind of see the transition that everyone's made, because this is a very odd time for all of us to be March, April, May, and be able to kind of put the time off the course, into bodies. Because, I mean, once we go, everyone has the expectation of once we do get the clear to go, it's going to be hard and heavy for a pretty long time. So build up some resilience, build up some endurance, and, wait it out and enjoy the time with your family as much as you can, because when that gun goes off again, you better be ready.
Scott, since you're, have the time to train a little bit more in the gym, can you go over the health and lifestyle change that you've had over the last couple of years?
In what regard? Because there's quite a bit to that. I kind of give you the highlights.
Go through some of the highlights, because I think this story is the most interesting one out there. So.
Well, I mean, I was a guy that I sort of took for granted what I had off the course. I kind of felt like if I put forth, good effort in my job and my career, that I could do what I want when I wanted without much repercussion. And that's not like drinking and partying or whatever. It's just, no concept of diet, nutrition, and, any kind of idea of this is it. This is the only body that I get. And trying to, figure out a way to, maximize what my potential was. And, slowly but surely I started to see some stuff deteriorate. And probably the biggest I was probably 250 plus pounds, no telling what body fat percentage. But when it all started to click and come better, I had a major sinus surgery in 2015 and, kind of went through all my stuff, just trying to go down the path of figuring out what worked best for me and what did. Honestly, it wasn't as much as what worked, it was almost what didn't work. And, kind of figuring out the different variables that I could use to, that would make a difference. And a good friend of mine reached out and told me that he'd worked with the diet nutritionist guy that was out of Charlotte, North Carolina, a group called Renaissance Periodization. Called the guy end of December, and January 7th of 2018, I was 232 pounds and 26%. And right after the Boston event, which was the second playoff event, I was 184 and 10 and a half.
Wow.
Wow.
So, but I mean, a lot of that goes into it. Like, I'd made all the changes, and then you start to see one change, and then it starts to cascade into another and another and another. And I started building a pretty good routine as far as, what my days look like, what my training, my practice, my recovery, and, kind of how to manage that through, a really, really long season, and just understanding everything you're going to come across, from travel to hotels to houses to, where you're going to train, where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep, what are you going to do to just kind of manage all that. But it's been a really unique process, and I could literally talk about it for hours, just as far as hopefully that as the more and more interviews and talks that I can do, the better off I'll be to try to help someone not make the same mistake that I did, and not wait till you get scary doctor's appointments, or I think so many people are scared of information and like, oh, I'd just rather not know. I'd rather know everything. And you start to figure out, like, even if a blood test comes back as normal, or it provides almost like it kind of affirms what you're doing, and you kind of build some checks and balances into over the course of what you're doing throughout a year and throughout your life. And I mean, a bunch of my buddies like, man, I haven't been a doctor in 10 years. Like, and I have blood work done every 3 months.
Yeah.
And just different things like that. And I was the same way. I didn't want to know, kind of turn a blind eye and hope for the best. And next thing you know, like, man, I really wish I'd had taken a better idea as far as what this looked like, and be able to kind of make the difference, and hopefully wouldn't have gone down such a rough path for such a long time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about that is, now that you've learned the process and lived the process, you can start to help other people. And I think that's, myself, I've gone through a bit of a process like that. And now it's my turn to give back and teach people, help people, start to live a healthier lifestyle.
For sure. It makes a wild difference to kind of see where you put yourself in the priority, and understand that, this is all I get. I'm going to get one shot at this, and I might as well see, what I'm truly capable of. I did a podcast yesterday. It was more like necessarily on a golf side, but more just like a health and wellness. And I did it at my gym, and I kind of took them around, like, why I have certain things on the wall. And I'm not a great runner. I enjoy running. It's just not necessarily something I'm the best at. I prefer to do other things in terms of cardio. And I put this Socrates quote right in front of the treadmill, and basically the gist of it, it's fairly long, but what a shame to live your life without truly seeing what your body is capable of. And I'm sitting there sucking wind and trying to churn out some miles of this and that. Look at it, and Socrates is just like slapping me in the face. It's like, all right, man, you say you're going to do this. You say you're going to push yourself. You say you're going to do this. You say you're going to do that. Like, let's see what you got. And I'm just in the gym by myself, like, just cussing Socrates. And that quote's there for a reason. And I think the more opportunities I have to do stuff like that will go a long way as well.
That's cool.
I'm curious, Scott, given such kind of like a massive improvement in your diet and your fitness, what specifically would you say that's done for your golf game? I mean, obviously it's a massive change to your lifestyle. I'm sure it's, helps you in pretty much every aspect of life, but I think a lot of people are curious what happens on the golf course with kind of all these improvements you've made to your situation.
I mean, I get that asked a lot. I'm able to do a lot more with a lot less. I'm able to handle the volume of just, you think of volume as just an encompassing factor of everything you take into account with what professional golf brings, and travel, training, recovery, and just the amount of swings that we make throughout a week. And I mean, there'd be days where I'd be so tired, like the practice was just not going to happen. And, you know, able to put the time and effort in that it takes to compete with the best players in the world, and to go out there day in, day out, you know, refreshed and recovered to take on whatever it is that, I mean, that I'd have to deal with that day, and build up significant resiliency. My body manages the stress significantly better. And you asked my PT and Adam Curley, we were just training just a little while ago, right before we came on, and we're just talking about there's so much effort to try to get me to Thursday, and now it's almost like, man, what do we need to do just to kind of, you know, make sure everything's moving the way it's supposed to, instead of like, man, are we just going to have to hope for the best in certain areas, whether it's my hip or my back or, you know, whatever I was dealing with. And now it's like, man, we're pretty good. Just kind of keep things going in the right progression and take it from there. But from like a biomechanics standpoint, there's been a little bit of I was talking to my teacher, Scott Hamilton, last night. There's been some patterning stuff that has definitely changed. We started exchanging some videos early in my career when I was definitely significantly bigger. My turn wasn't very good, but honestly, it was just from a physicality standpoint, I couldn't. And now my mobility is significantly better. So training some of those patterns now to try to make some changes, especially the way that the club delivers. We got a lot of forward shaft lean, and like when it sees those like stinger videos, like just the way the ball comes off. I mean, that's not overly difficult for me to hit it that low. But a lot of it has to do with the way that my right arm, I increase right arm bend as the way coming down. And essentially I'm trying to get that out now. And a lot of that has to do with some old habits and the way that my hip turns now compared to it did in the past. And so good and bad, I guess, and just trying to manage some of the habits that basically I just dealt with my whole entire career. And now you're dealing with a completely different body and, you know, almost 60 pounds less and significantly more fit, more mobile. And so kind of battling both of those from a strength and mobility standpoint, and ability to kind of get away from some of those habits and show my golf swing some stuff that it hasn't really been capable of in the past.
Right. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting. I mean, change is good and great, but it's new patterns to learn and understanding your tendencies with those new patterns and the variation in shots and things like that. So that's what have you seen? Have you seen anything from, you know, from a distance standpoint, from a range of motion standpoint? Have you seen anything, you know, that's picked up from that, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, like my hip mobility is like, it's not even close. I don't even know if I had hip mobility before. So like we posted a video on Twitter the other day of this like 90-90 like med ball rotation of my buddies in Phoenix that I was working with. And I mean, it is funny just the fact of how I can get in those positions compared to before. It was just, I mean, if I got in it, I sure as heck wasn't coming out of it, and trying to manage it from there. But it was interesting. My coach, Scott, we do a bunch of stuff on gears, especially like when you're playing good. So you kind of know what you're looking at. And we were down there after LA, and he had an old gears session from when I first started working with him a few years ago. And I was, I mean, you know, 240, 250 pounds. And just to see some of the differences of how I deliver and like the ground force that I can produce I can produce more ground force now at significantly less body weight than I did when I was heavier. So just the volatility of actually shooting out of the ground and, you know, trying to rotate around that, you know, it's like my lower, I have lost the weight, but my lower body and everything has got significantly stronger. So just being able to kind of manage that and kind of seeing some of the mechanical advantages that I can create. You know, ball speed's gone up, range of motion's gone, but just like we talked about some of the patterning stuff just a minute ago, like the ability to disassociate. When you can't move, there's no disassociation at all. It just kind of like everything kind of hose and kind of hopes for the best. And now the ability to kind of separate my hips from my shoulders is something that's actually possible. Trying to manage all that stuff, and which has been very interesting. And this is a great time to be able to do it too, because I struggled the first round of the players, and we go and we were practicing Thursday afternoon before we got shut down Thursday night. And I literally like had one of the best like hitting sessions I've had in a long time. So, I mean, obviously that was the right call to do, to shut down, but it was kind of like it all started kind of clicking where, you know, you kind of see the hips go and the club kind of match up with it, you know, right at impact, where before it was kind of sliding out of the way and had a ton of right bend. Like I said, increase right arm bend, you know, through the hit, and, you know, had to figure out a way to get rid of it and kind of manage all that stuff. But all that to be said, the potential is there, but kind of managing some of the patterning stuff is something that's we needed some time to do, and one more time like the present.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I think if people don't know your story, it's a pretty inspirational one to really kind of take your whole life and sort of take an external look at it and go, okay, this has to change. You know, I have to change my routines and habits, and if I'm going to, like you say, live in the best vehicle that you possibly can and play the game to the best of your ability. I'd love to ask, how much of a gear junkie are you? Are you into your equipment? Has that been something that you've been influential in?
A little bit. Scott, my instructor, is a little bit more of a he works with a bunch of equipment companies are great, and we do a bunch of testing at his place in Cartersville. And honestly, I'm a pretty slow changer in most regards. I used like the same set of irons for 6 years. I had to change the heads, but the same shafts, the same everything. And just recently, you know, transferred over to the T100s as soon as they came out. But it was funny. Like, I knew the progression as far as what was happening, but, you know, I tweak things based on what I like. But overall, like I'm not in the fitness trailer, like searching for magic. I kind of find something that I like. You ask Aaron Dill, the wedge guy, there's 3 guys that are still using basically like prehistoric wedges. And myself and Brooks Koepka and Aaron Badley all use this model that they've basically discontinued. And it's the old TVD, which is, I legitimately have one in my bag right now. It says 2012 on it. But I think with anything, like, I'm going to be the guy that I will always blame myself before I blame my equipment. But if there's some different things, some tweaks, made some interesting tweaks right before the fall. My short game coach, Jeff Pierce, had me up to Old Stone and Bowling Green where he teaches, and started talking about just different things in my wedge game and some ways to make improvements. And he was kind of going through some statistic stuff and just asking questions as far as how I play certain shots. And he said, well, my calculation, you're a 90-10 lob wedge to everything else pitcher. And he said, the way that I think you would be a more optimized around the greens, he said, you would be more of a 50-50 between your sand wedge and your lob wedge. And I said, well, how do I do that? He said, well, just he went into his bay and came back out. He's like, all right, we're going to learn how to use these. And he changed the loft, changed the lie just a little bit. And through right before the players, I had more hole outs from off the green than anyone on tour. I didn't change anything. I just made it to where my default was sand wedge, and then if I needed to, I could go to lob wedge. And really the most hole outs I'd ever had in one season was 4 ever. That was the year before. I had 4 hole outs from off the green, and through 10 events, I'd had 17. And it was just crazy, the transition of, man, like, oh, what'd you do? Oh, well, I practiced. Well, yeah, I mean, everyone's going to practice, but I think I just learned my tendency to where if I deliver the strike more consistently and have a club that can kind of, you know, be a little bit more versatile, and if I need to go up, I can use that lob wedge to be able to go into it. It was crazy to see the difference of just in a matter of weeks, like I started seeing my proximity, my scrambling through the players was the highest it's ever been in my career. And just like little things like that, I'd say that I would tweak, if I was a junkie in anything, I would tweak little things like that. Loft, slides, some weight here and there, but not necessarily going and beating the equipment trailer guys to death. I've had an interesting change of late with some of the changes that I've made in my body. I've used a short driver almost my whole career, and I've transitioned into trying to get into a little bit longer, a 45-inch full-length driver. And it's been a unique when you've used basically a 44 finished for 10 plus years, and then it's like feeling like a long drive. But the time off has been nice to be able to fully dial that in. Scott and the guys at Titleist have been great to work with, and so that's about as much equipment as I kind of dabble in. Aaron, the wedge guy at Vokey, has been great as far as trying to transition the ancient guys into some of the more current line. And I actually chipped around with mine yesterday, and that would be a pretty easy transition to be into, especially, I mean, he's the best in the business as far as giving you something that you can go play day in, day out with. So if y'all have never had him on here, man, he'd be fascinating to talk to.
We have
talk to him all day.
We have.
Yeah, he was actually our third. He was our third guest on the podcast. He's been awesome. I think I first met Dill in 2008. I was working actually out helping the Titleist guys at the Hope, and Aaron had just started with Bob on the trailer, and got to know him. He was super young, and as was I, and we got to know each other well. And he's been always really kind to give us all lots of time.
Well, we just saw him at the PGA show. So Bob and Aaron did a video with us, Scott, which was great of them to do to begin with, and just kind of took us through like a mock fitting for myself. Obviously, I'm a nobody when it comes to playing golf, but the way that those two, Aaron especially, kind of give you their attention and treat you like a tour player, it's not just a story. They really are like
care.
that. He really was 100% invested in my wedge game, and I think it's a pretty rare trait of somebody to be able to behave that way for someone that works with someone like yourself, also that's a top tier player.
Especially someone who would not really tell you, but I mean, he's definitely the heir apparent. To take over whenever. And, he's always there to lend an ear and, ask questions. And I pre-wear all my leading edges on my clubs. Got a great guy that I work with in Scottsdale, Arizona when I lived out there, Aaron Valdez. And, I mean, him and his team out there kind of dialed it. And those guys were unbelievable, man. Aaron has basically built every club that I've played for the last 6 years. And I think that has nothing to do with the Titleist guys. I just think when you have one person doing it, you just have less vulnerability, and it's coming out of the same hands and this. But Valdez and Dill and all the team at Titleist has kind of come together to and honestly, that's why I really haven't changed. I haven't had a major need and whatever. And if I was going to make a change, they would be some of the guys that I would call first. Hey, is there something lacking? Is there something new to get better? Or just my default is like, I'm the person that needs to get better and spend the time in certain areas, and so that's kind of where I would take the responsibility in that regard.
Great advice. I think when you talk about working with someone like Aaron, and I've worked with Aaron as well, and knowing his capabilities from a grind perspective, for somebody who leans the shaft and has historically leaned the shaft, that little pre-worn leading edge is very, very, very important for your turf interaction, isn't it? To get that club in and out the turf really efficiently.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys something, and y'all are maybe way more gear junkies, but I witnessed this and I did it myself. So I didn't, and the only reason why is because it just happened. So Aaron Valdez builds all my clubs. Titleist guys, if anything we need, they'll take care of it in a heartbeat. But it's just kind of I like having one person, and that was my guy. And it has literally nothing to do with Titleist or anything. It just has to do with, I know it's one phone call. I know it came out of one person's hands. It's just, less opportunity to just have something get awry. And Aaron built my first set of irons when I won at Torrey. Pre-war the leading edge, and it was the 7/16s offset just everything I possibly could just to just smash the ball. And then you have a ton of forward shaft lane, just compress the heck out of it and kind of deal with everything that would happen. And so I transfer into the T100s. I don't have near the offset, so we kind of shallowed out the grind on the leading edge a little bit. Well, I asked to have a backup set made, and Aaron had my original clubs that I wasn't using anymore. I mean, when I finally got rid of my original set of 716s, I was spinning an 8-iron off of a drift fairway like 5,000 at like 100 feet. I mean, it's just like a knuckleball. No grooves, kind of worn the set out a little bit. But he had that original set the way it was ground. And he's like, man, for this set, I don't understand why the grind is so shallow on your T100s. I think you should have the same grind. It's like, well, go ahead, man. Like, it's worth the shot. I'm happy with the irons I have. And just by changing the angle of the grind and making it a little bit deeper and just a little bit steeper in the front, it changed the angle of attack and my turf interaction by 2 degrees. Yeah, and the same weight, same head, same everything, just the grind was a little bit different. And it was wild. Like, I was convinced something was wrong with the club. You're talking about an 8-iron of 7 or 8 down, which is pretty typical for me, to like 5 or 6, which is what I'm trying to get to. And my coach Scott Hamilton down there is like, what are you doing different? I was like, I'm not doing anything different. Like, I'm trying to literally swing club to club and make sure. So we thought the lie was off, the club, everything, and when we matched it up, it was like the same guy built them. And he was like, the only thing I did different was I changed the pitch and made it just slightly deeper. But that's what like little tweaks in there. We play a game of such a small margin, anything like that that's going to allow the ball to come out a little bit higher, a little bit more spin, more just consistent turf interaction. And I mean, those are the things that kind of make the difference, especially as the knife's edge that we play on tour.
Scott, do you tinker with the putter a lot, or do you kind of stay steady with the blade for 8 years or 10 years and you just kind of work on it? Or
I don't know. Putting is definitely something I've been kind of ebbs and flows in my career. I've had the thing where I need to lock down and I need to be super tight over it, and everything. My setup and everything has been significantly better, and kind of messed around with a few different teachers and kind of learned a lot from each and every decision I made, and worked with Marcus Potter for a little bit. I got Jeff Pierce is my short game putting instructor, and it's kind of like, hey, see what other people think. And I reached out to Phil Kenyon, awesome guy. And I'd never really spent much time with him, but I just called and said, hey, would you take a look for a little bit and just kind of let me know what you think? He kind of gave a synopsis as far as what he thinks. And if y'all have ever talked to him, he has an incredibly dry sense of humor. And he said, mate, this is not a arrow problem. I was like, I have no idea what that means. And he said, I just want you to find something you like looking at. He said, once you fix the Indian, we can worry about the arrow. He said, but basically this is a you thing. This isn't a that thing. And so many people think like putter fitting and this and that, it's the shortest club in the bag with the least amount of loft. So it's a flat face. So there's so many different things that you would do to manipulate that. And he said, I want you to find the thing that you like looking best at, and which is a blade like Newport style. And so I go and get it and work on it. Jeff and I start working on some things, and Honda have the best strokes game putting of my professional career. So, and then now it's like we don't play. So it started kind of getting the ball rolling a little bit and seeing it go in. And but that's something that that's probably the only thing that I collect. I give clubs away, wedges, drivers, everything that I don't use, but I've got a fairly decent camera collection.
That's cool.
What's your golf ball choice? What do you play?
I would love to see that.
Yeah, probably would. Next time.
Obviously, somebody who. Yeah, go for it.
I play the 2019 Pro V1X. Nothing special.
Okay.
Just the regular ball.
Cool.
Is that what you played for? You played the X for most of your career with Titleist, Scott, or have you switched back and forth?
I played the X for a really long time. I messed around with the Star a little bit when I was kind of transitioning with the driver for a little bit, but I went back as my club head speed went up and everything started getting the spin I needed to, and a lot of that was changing just the way I delivered the club in, just because I was in better shape.
Yeah. Very cool. What about shafts and things like that? What do you kind of tinker with? Anything with shafts, or do you find a shaft you like the feeling and timing of and just stick with that?
Well, living in Scottsdale for half the year for 6 years is where KBS is out of, and I kind of helped did a bunch of prototype testing with them with the S taper, and I was one of the first guys to put it in. I used KBS Tour until that kind of got approved and everything. And as soon as the S taper was allowed to get put in there, I've used it ever since. But the same thing goes, like, you find something that works. If you kind of commit to certain companies and work, you have consistency, you kind of know what to rely upon. And not to say that there's anything wrong with any of the other companies, just kind of like, man, I know what I'm doing when I do that. And I know that it's not the equipment. I know that it's me. And I think that the more you can eliminate variables from an equipment standpoint, like if you go just take the array of equipment that's available, it can be pretty daunting, because, I mean, essentially you could go in any trailer, any shaft company, any wedge company, any ball company, and put a combination that's good. But just, find the commitment to, like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to dial this in based on these certain set of parameters and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I think being in that Scottsdale area where you've got access to Kim personally, and obviously you can work with him and TK and those guys, and they can give you options and build up different sets and work with Aaron, and that's a real team around you, which is phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, basically every club that I get, unless it comes off the truck itself, but if heads or whatever, like, I like to have it come off the same machine. I like to know that, like, just the person that I trust a lot and has put a bunch of time into knowing, I mean, probably knows more about my clubs than I do. And a lot of it's just the weight sorting, the frequency matching and everything, to know that the club's going to deliver every single way, all throughout the bag. And I mean, just like I said, the margin of error we have out here is not very high. So the tighter you can make it, the better you're going to be.
Love it.
So 10 years in the PGA Tour. What is the PGA Tour like now versus it was when you first got on there? What differences do you see? Is the talent depth as deep as they say now and things like that? Yeah, everybody can win now, and I don't think the fear is there. When I first got on tour, if Tiger was there, it was something that everyone thought about. Everyone knew that if he brought it, no one really had a chance, and I don't think that that's the case anymore. It was not that people don't appreciate the stuff that Tiger's done, because, I mean, nobody would be where they are in the world of golf without him. So, and anyone tells you that different is lying, especially someone that does it at the highest level. But I think that as I've gotten older, you start to see the perspective of the fear is not there, and the preparation is so much better. Of just the expectation, I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna do my thing. And especially the younger age, they own their game so much better. They know what they do, they know what they don't do, and they're not gonna really let someone like, I mean, Joaquin, like, I don't think you would necessarily tell someone to go out there and swing the way that he does, but he doesn't care. And nor should he care. And he knows what he does. He knows what he does really, really well. And, he's had a great start to his career, and he'll be great for a long time. And, you could go up and down all the young guys, but it's crazy the transition as I get older. I mean, I'm 35 now, but I look at it from the perspective, I feel like I'm just started, just because the way that the physical stuff has changed. But from like a experience standpoint, I feel like a bunch of the younger guys start asking me questions like, man, when did I get into this role? And like, some of the questions I'm answering are like, did this just, like, I woke up one day and next thing you know, I'm like talking to people about, having kids and managing life on the road. What in the world's going on here? How did you become that guy?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, I mean, the depth right now. You look at Victor Hovland, Matt Wolff, Colin Morikawa. I mean, those guys were ready to win.
Oh, yeah. Right away.
Yeah, straight off out the college.
Yeah, Colin's the only one I played with, and I mean, super talented, obviously, but I mean, up and down the range, I don't think you'll see guys do something every now and then that kind of stands out, but like you go up and down the range, you're like, that guy's good,
Mm-hmm.
but we're all good, or we wouldn't be there.
Yeah,
and I think that when you kind of look at it from that perspective, you'll have your anomalies every now and then that kind of stand out, but I think that it's a little bit easier to put your head down and focus. I go out there and do what I need to do. I can compete with the best players in the world, and the more kind of blinders on and focus what you need to do, the easier it is to do that now, especially because the depth is so deep, across all tournaments, across all fields. For the most part, you're teeing it up, man. You do your thing. You're going to have a chance come Sunday.
Right. Where's the best stop on tour? Where's the one you look forward to every single year? You can't wait to get back to that venue.
Muirfield, there at Jack's place in Columbus. I did another golf pot, and they were like, tell us a story about on tour that not many people know. And my rookie year, my mentor, kind of the guy that took me under his wing, was Kenny Perry, and I played all my practice rounds, and I basically followed him around like a lost dog my rookie year. And I was using these chalk lines to practice, and we were getting ready to go play a practice round on Monday, and he comes up. He's like, is that your chalk line? I was like, yeah. He's like, man, I forgot to tell you, Jack can't stand them. And I started freaking out.
Oh, no.
And I'd go run, and I tell people I had more equipment, more sanitary, more cleaning supplies than you would ever need in your entire life to get up this chalk line. And I come back down, and Jack's standing there with Kenny, and I was just,
oh no,
they got me.
Oh, they got
like that.
He's just screwing with you. Oh no.
Oh, absolutely.
That's mean.
Man. I was like, and Kenny still to this day, like I actually played with him his last Memorial, and he played the tournament, and still we go right by that putting green. Like I could tell you exactly where I was when I came down from the clock room and everything. It's like, but just different things like that where, anything that he puts his name on, he's in there 100%. And, great golf course that fits my eye very well. Had a chance to win there a couple times, and played well there, and a great experience, and a very, very. But I mean, now the way that the tour is, I mean, every event's good. It's just the ones that you prefer. The golf course is better than the other.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. Well,
this has been great.
Yeah, this is awesome. Really appreciate awesome. You giving us, this much of your time, Scott. I mean, I know that the time right now is not ideal for anyone, but we're hugely thankful to have the opportunity to do things like this with people like yourself, and it means an awful lot to spend the time.
Absolutely, we'll be rooting for you when we get back out of there.
100%.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys. I like what you guys are doing, and keep putting out the good content. So I hopefully see you guys back out on tour here soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome.
All right, pal. Take care. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.